The street was packed, phones were up. A half-circle of onlookers stood frozen around two men, one yelling loud enough to shake windows, the other standing still like a block of stone. "You deaf old man," the street fighter shouted, spit flying from the corner of his mouth. "I said back up before I embarrass you in front of your little fan club." He was huge, tatted up, sleeveless tank stretched across his chest, veins bulging down both arms. The kind of guy who looked like he never trained technique, just threw fists and bets. He was laughing now. "You really think that movie star glare works in real life? This ain't a set. You're in my world now." Jason Statham didn't blink, didn't twitch, didn't even breathe loud. The crowd's mood shifted. A couple of the Street Fighter's boys started chanting, "Light him up." One of them even shoved a folding chair out of the way like it was going to turn into a backyard brawl. But Jason, he just looked at the guy, not with fear, not with fury, just like he was calculating the next 10 seconds. And that's what scared people the most. Because he wasn't flinching, he was waiting. Let's rewind, because this moment, this standoff in the middle of an alley 2 blocks off Eastport Market, it didn't come out of nowhere. It started 4 days earlier. Jason had just landed in Manchester. Quiet trip. No press. No handlers. No publicist tweeting flight updates. He didn't need attention, he needed air. Time. A reset. A friend of his, Mason, ran a community youth center in a rougher part of town, boxing club in the back. Jason had donated to it before. Now Mason was asking for something else. "Just a visit," Mason had said. "The boys respect fighters, but they only know the ones who shout loudest." Jason raised an eyebrow. "You want me to give a speech?" "I want you to show up," Mason said. "Let them see what discipline looks like." The center was tucked behind an old factory. Brick walls, scuffed concrete floor, the faint sound of gloves hitting pads in the back. Jason walked in wearing a black hoodie, bag slung over one shoulder. A couple of teens looked up, they knew the face, whispered, then went back to their training. Mason greeted him with a slap on the back and a nod toward the back ring. "That's where it's getting dicey," he said. Jason looked. In the corner, surrounded by a group of younger fighters, stood a man who looked like he was built out of bricks and temper. His name was Renzo. Former underground fighter, known locally for knocking guys out cold in friendly matches that ended with ambulances. He wasn't part of the program. He just showed up one day and never left. "Thinks he owns the place," Mason muttered. "Kids watch him like a god. Can't tell if he's helping or recruiting." Jason watched Renzo hit mitts with a teen, power over form, aggression over control. When the kid didn't move fast enough, Renzo shoved him. Jason's jaw flexed. "That happen often?" he asked. Mason exhaled. "He doesn't like being corrected." "Or challenged," Jason nodded. "Then I won't correct him." Later that afternoon, Jason was helping one of the younger kids with footwork, simple movement drills, light touches, steady rhythm. That's when Renzo walked by. "Didn't know movie stars did footwork," he said loud enough for the room to hear. Jason looked up but said nothing. Renzo smiled. "Thought you'd be in Hollywood, not in my gym stealing my spotlight." "Didn't realize it was yours," Jason replied calmly. "It is when everyone watches me." Renzo took a step closer. "You come here for a selfie or you think you're teaching something real?" Jason locked eyes. "I came to remind them what respect looks like." Renzo laughed. "Respect? You think that comes from moving your feet in a circle?" Jason didn't blink. "No. It comes after someone tries to take your space and fails." The gym went quiet. Renzo grinned. "You want to dance, old man?" Jason stared at him for a long beat, then turned back to the kid and resumed the drill. That silence, it said everything. But Renzo wasn't done. The next day, Jason showed up again. Same time, same hoodie, same routine. This time, Renzo was waiting. "Heard you used to do a bit of scrapping in your films," he said, following Jason to the ring. "Tell you what, 1 round, no rules, no ref, just you, me, and whoever wants to watch." Jason set his bag down. "I'm not here to fight." Renzo raised an eyebrow. "Too scared." Jason zipped the bag shut. "Too focused." But then Renzo looked at Mason and the group of kids watching from behind the heavy bags and shouted loud enough for the building to hear. Didn't realize the movies made cowards now. The kids reacted, not with laughter but with hesitation. They didn't know who to follow. And that's when Jason knew this wasn't about him anymore. 2 nights later, Jason returned, same alley, same gym. But this time word had spread, and so had Renzo. He told everyone. "The transporter's gonna get transported to the ER." He even had a friend set up a live stream. It wasn't a fight, it was a show, and Jason, he showed up alone. No hype, no camera, just focus. And now we're back to that alley. Back to Renzo's voice echoing off brick walls. You hear me, tough guy? This is your last chance to walk away. Jason raised his eyes slowly, took one step forward, and the street fighter stopped laughing, because something about the way Jason moved, it wasn't cinematic. It was deadly real. Jason took another step forward. Renzo's grin twitched, just slightly, like something primal deep in him recognized the shift. The crowd around them hadn't picked up on it yet. They still thought this was funny, viral-worthy, nothing serious, but Jason didn't have an audience look in his eyes. He had the look of someone who'd been here before, not in an alley, not in front of a crowd. But at that razor-thin edge between control and violence, Renzo barked out one last laugh, louder now, as if to push down that flicker of hesitation. What, you gonna stare me into submission? This ain't one of your stunt scenes, mate. You don't have a choreographer here to save your neck. Jason kept walking, slow, calm, precise. Back up, Renzo shouted. I said back. Jason was already there, right in his space. No shoving, no warning, just presence, and for a second, just a second, Renzo froze. Jason's voice came out low, steady. Walk away. Renzo's jaw flexed. Jason didn't blink. Walk away. And that's when Renzo did the thing everyone would later say was a mistake. He swung, not clean, not planned, just a wide, angry, ego-filled punch, and Jason saw it before it left his shoulder. He slipped the punch effortlessly, barely shifting his stance. His right hand moved like it had been waiting all night, not for a fight, for permission. He caught Renzo's wrist mid-swing, stepped inside the arc of the punch, and in one smooth motion dropped him. No kick, no flashy combo. Just a redirect, a pivot, and a takedown so fast the phones in the crowd barely caught it in focus. Renzo hit the pavement hard, breath knocked out of him. Jason stepped back, didn't follow up, didn't gloat, he just waited. Renzo scrambled to his feet, red-faced, embarrassed. He rushed again, this time faster, sloppier. Jason ducked the first strike, blocked the second, and parried the third. Every movement was efficient, nothing wasted. Then came one sharp palm strike to Renzo's chest. Nothing fancy, just enough to make him lose balance again. He stumbled back against a parked car. The crowd gasped, not because Jason hit him, but because Jason didn't follow through. Renzo looked confused, breathing hard, chest heaving. This wasn't the script he expected. Jason stepped forward again, voice calm. Still think this is about ego? Renzo spat on the ground. You think this means anything? You want to prove you're tough? Let's finish it, right now. Jason didn't move, he just spoke. You already finished it the moment you threw the first punch. You just don't know it yet. From the edge of the alley, a voice broke through the silence. Mason, Jason, he said firmly. That's enough. Jason turned his head slightly. Renzo took the opportunity to lunge again, this time aiming low, trying to tackle. Jason pivoted, caught his weight mid-charge, and turned it into another throw. This one gentler, but enough to plant him flat on the ground again. Jason stood over him, not with threat, with clarity. This is your last swing, he said. Use it well. Renzo groaned, rolled to his side, and didn't get up. The phone stopped recording. The crowd didn't cheer. There was no KO, no knockout punch, but something far heavier landed in that alley silence, and respect. Jason stepped back, adjusted his sleeve, and turned to walk away. As he did, one of Renzo's guys mumbled under his breath, "Guess he is the real deal." Later that night, Jason sat in Mason's office, still calm, still quiet. Mason leaned on the edge of his desk. "You didn't come here to fight." "No," Jason replied, "but sometimes the fight comes anyway." Mason nodded. "You didn't embarrass him." "I didn't need to," Jason said. "He did that part himself." Outside the youth center, a few of the teens who had once watched Renzo like a god stood in a loose group, replaying the scene from memory. One of them, Darrell, asked, "You think he's always like that?" "Who?" the kid beside him asked. "Statham," Darrell said. "Like when no one's looking." Another kid answered without hesitation. "He was already like that before anyone ever looked." 2 blocks away, Renzo sat on the back bumper of a car, a bottle of water pressed to the side of his head. His crew stood nearby, quiet for once. One of them finally asked, "You gonna get him back?" Renzo didn't answer right away. Then he said, "He didn't beat me." The others looked confused. Renzo added, "He didn't need to." That night, Jason packed quietly in his hotel room. No calls, no posts, just the same man he was when he arrived. But now with one difference. He knew Renzo's story wasn't finished yet, and neither was the lesson. Because sometimes, the real fight comes after the one you think is over. By morning, the video had 2.3 million views. Someone in the crowd had streamed the whole thing on social. It didn't matter that the clip was shaky or that the audio was messy, it was raw, real. Jason Statham, in a dark hoodie, dismantling a muscle-bound street fighter in under a minute without ever throwing a full punch. The internet ate it up. This wasn't a fight, this was a statement. Bro got transported straight to the pavement, and he didn't even break a sweat. But Jason, he wasn't online, he was already gone. He'd left Manchester just before dawn back to a quiet flat outside London. He hadn't told anyone, not even Mason. That fight, it wasn't supposed to be seen. And more than that, it wasn't supposed to matter. But it did. Because respect, the kind that sticks, has a way of echoing in places you never expected. Renzo woke up to the noise, literally. His phone buzzed nonstop. Mentions, DMs, missed calls. He rubbed his face, stared at the screen, and didn't even open half the notifications. Because every message said the same thing. Yo, you got folded. That actor worked you. No way you're coming back from that. Renzo shut the phone off and just sat in silence. Later that day, he returned to the gym. No one said anything when he walked in. No jokes, no nods. Not even eye contact. They just went back to their bags, their drills, their movements. For the first time in months, he wasn't the loudest presence in the room. Mason stepped out of his office. Didn't expect to see you, he said. Renzo shrugged. Figured I'd get it over with. What's that? The part where everyone pretends like they didn't watch me lose to a guy in joggers. Mason crossed his arms. Nobody's pretending. Renzo looked up. Mason continued, they saw you lose, and they saw how you reacted. That's the part that matters. Renzo scoffed. You think I should be proud of getting dropped? I think you should be proud you stood back up and came back. Renzo didn't respond. Meanwhile, Jason was back in his routine. Early morning runs, simple meals, no noise. Until his phone rang, it was Mason. You've seen the video by now. I haven't, Jason said flatly. Well, Mason replied, millions have, including some people you probably didn't want finding it. Jason leaned back in his chair. Who? Old contacts, gym owners, a few from your less cinematic days. Jason didn't say anything. Mason added, one guy from the East End wants you to do a training seminar. Real money, real exposure. I'm not interested, Jason said. I figured. Just thought you should know your shadow travels fast. For the next few days, Jason kept his head down, but things changed. On the street, people stared longer, whispered. At the cafe, the barista paused before handing him his tea. You're the guy from the clip, right? The one who never mind. Jason nodded once, took his tea, and walked away. Back in Manchester, Renzo couldn't shake it either. Everywhere he went, someone looked at him differently. Not with pity, not even with mockery, but with curiosity. Like they were waiting to see what version of him would show up next. So he made a choice. He went to Mason's office, knocked twice, and walked in before being invited. I want to run a class. Mason looked up. You? Renzo nodded. Kids, basics, not for fighting, for discipline. Mason raised an eyebrow. And you're not doing this to chase a comeback. Renzo shook his head. I'm doing it because I finally know what it feels like to get checked. And I want them to learn before they have to. Mason stared at him a moment, then nodded once. All right, you've got Friday. Jason got the message later that week. A photo from Mason, Renzo standing in front of a group of kids in the gym. No fists up, no ego, just talking. Caption underneath. Sometimes you don't have to fight a man to change him. Just let him feel it. Jason didn't reply. He didn't have to, but this wasn't over. Because somewhere out there, another clip was spreading. One that showed only part of the alley fight. A version edited to make Jason look like the aggressor. A version that caught the attention of someone who didn't care about truth, only legacy. A man Jason once trained with in the French Foreign Legion. A man who never forgot the day Jason walked away. And who always swore, if I ever see you quit again, I'll finish what you started. And now he was watching. The knock came just after sunset. Jason was pouring tea, the kettle still steaming, when 3 soft raps hit the front door. Not urgent, not loud, but intentional. He set the cup down and walked to the door slowly. No paranoia, just awareness. He opened it. No one was there, just an envelope, black. No name, no logo. Jason bent down, picked it up, and opened it under the porch light. Inside, 1 photograph, 2 men sparring, grainy, old. One of them was Jason. The other was Callan Voss. Jason exhaled once, slow and deliberate. He hadn't heard that name in nearly 14 years. Callan had been a soldier, a brawler. And for a short time, Jason's shadow during a stretch of deep work overseas, the kind you never talk about on record. But Callan didn't like being second, and Jason didn't tolerate ego. The fallout was fast, violent, and in Jason's case final. He walked away. Callan didn't. Jason turned the photo over. There was a short handwritten note. "I never forgot what you took from me." Underneath, an address. A location he hadn't been near since the last time he wore combat boots without a film crew watching. Back in Manchester, Mason saw the shift happen in real time. Jason had returned. He was sharper, focused, still quiet but not peaceful. Something had changed. "You planning on telling me what's going on?" Mason asked as they walked through the gym. "No." "Then why are you back?" Jason nodded toward the bags. "Same reason I left, to stay ready." Mason tilted his head. "This about Renzo?" Jason looked up. Renzo was a moment. This is history. That night in a dimly lit warehouse on the edge of Camden, Jason entered a room he'd once sworn never to revisit. Old mats, old scars, and in the center stood Callan, taller than before. Broader, same eyes. "You came," he said, cracking his knuckles. Jason stepped in, hands in his jacket pockets. "You left me no choice," Callan grinned. "That's how I know it worked." Callan walked a slow circle around him. "You've built a nice little image for yourself, calm, clean." Controlled, Jason didn't respond. "But I remember you in the jungle," Callan continued. "I remember when you were real." Jason's jaw twitched. "You walked away from all of it," Callan said. "From me, from the work, from who you really were." Jason finally looked at him. "I walked away from what you became. There's a difference." Callan's smile faded for a second, then came back colder. "You can't outrun legacy," he said. "Eventually, someone's gonna drag you back into the dirt." Jason stepped closer. "Then let's finish it here." But Callan shook his head. "Oh no, that's too easy." He reached into his coat and pulled out a phone, opened a video. Jason watched the screen. At first, nothing unusual. Kids in a gym, heavy bags. Mason's youth center, then it panned to Renzo teaching, talking. And someone watching him from the back, phone in hand. Callan grinned. "You're not the only one who makes an impression." Jason's stare hardened. "What do you want?" Callan shrugged. "Nothing. Just wanted you to know that while you've been building respect, I've been buying loyalty." Jason took one step forward. "You stay away from that gym." Callan leaned in. "Or what?" Jason didn't answer, because he didn't need to. The next day, Renzo got a call, blocked number, gravelly voice. "You're wasting your gift." Renzo sat upright. "Who is this?" "I saw what you did to the actor," the voice said. "You pulled punches. You're soft now." Renzo gritted his teeth. "Who are you?" "You used to be feared," the voice said. "You want that back? Come to the address I'm about to text you, or stay teaching little kids how to dance around a ring." Click. A second later, the address buzzed into his inbox. "Well, before we dive into what happened next, if you've made it this far, you already know we don't tell ordinary stories. We drop bangers. If you're into cinematic moments, real tension, and wild twists, we sincerely invite you to hit that subscribe button. It helps us bring even more crazy stories your way. And trust me, what's coming next? You won't want to miss it. Back to the story. That night, Renzo showed up. Abandoned parking garage. Midnight, Jason was already there, alone, leaning against a support pillar. Renzo stepped forward. "You call me here?" Jason didn't move. "No," he said, "but I knew he would." Renzo turned. Callan stood 10 feet behind him, clapping slowly. "Well, this just got interesting," Callan said. Jason stepped between them. "You don't belong here," Callan smirked. "Neither do you. You think teaching discipline makes up for what we did." "What we were." Jason stepped forward again, voice lower now. "This ends here." Callan's smile didn't move, but his eyes did, toward Renzo, and that's when Jason realized Callan didn't want a rematch. He wanted a replacement. Jason stepped between them. One move, not aggressive, not loud, just firm. Renzo looked between the two men, confused, angry but not stupid. He could feel the current in the air shifting, the weight of something way bigger than pride. "You brought me here for him?" he asked. Callan grinned. "You wanted your edge back, I'm giving it to you." Jason didn't turn around. He kept his back to Callan and eyes on Renzo. "This isn't your fight," he said, but Renzo shook his head. "He said you were soft, that you held back in the alley, that I could have dropped you if I really tried." Jason didn't blink. "He's playing you." Renzo's jaw flexed. Then tell me the truth, did you hold back? Silence. Jason looked at him, right through him, then finally said, yes. Renzo flinched like it was a slap. Jason continued, calm and direct. Because I wasn't there to hurt you. I was there to stop you from hurting yourself. Callan laughed behind them, a low, mocking sound. That right there is why you lost the edge, Jason. All these years of pretending to be something better, but deep down you miss it. The control, the fear, the power. Jason slowly turned. You want fear? Fine. But you don't get to drag him into it. He dragged himself, Callan said, stepping closer. He's angry, directionless, just like you were when we met. Jason's tone sharpened. The difference is, someone pulled me out before it was too late. Callan stepped right into Jason's space now. Then try to stop me. Renzo moved first. He shoved Callan back, hard. Callan stumbled a step, surprised. You don't speak for me, Renzo snapped. You think I want to be you, some shadow wrapped in muscle and delusion. Jason didn't react, but something shifted in his posture. Callan smirked. Cute speech. Then swung. Jason ducked the punch instinctively. Fast, trained, but this wasn't like Renzo. Callan fought with weight, every strike calculated to injure, not just win. He followed the swing with an elbow that clipped Jason's shoulder, spun around and threw a knee to the ribs. Jason absorbed it, staggered slightly. Renzo backed up. Callan came forward again. Jason blocked the next two shots, but Callan was fast, too fast for someone who hadn't been in a ring in years. You forgot what it feels like, didn't you? Callan hissed as they moved. Jason stayed quiet, then landed a short jab to Callan's chin. Not hard, just enough to halt the rhythm. Callan grinned. There he is. Jason exhaled, reset his stance, then came forward. Two strikes, one to the arm, one to the ribs, and a pivot to the right. Callan tried to sweep his leg, but Jason stepped over and caught him with a palm under the chin. Callan staggered back now. Breathing heavier. Same tricks, he muttered. You never evolved. Jason didn't respond. He just stepped in again, faster this time, left elbow, right hook to the body, push to the chest. Callan flew back into a pillar, hitting it hard. Renzo stepped in between them before Jason followed. That's enough, he yelled. Jason stopped. Callan wiped his mouth, saw blood on his glove, then laughed again. You're still in there, he said. You didn't walk away from it, you just hit it better than I could. Jason stared at him. No, I changed. You just never tried. Callan shook his head slowly. We'll see. He turned and walked into the dark, disappearing between the broken beams of the garage. Jason stood there for a long second, hands down, heart calm. Renzo finally broke the silence. You really held back that night, Jason nodded. Renzo rubbed the back of his neck. Why? Because you were me, Jason said, before someone gave me a reason not to be. Renzo let that sit, then nodded once. Back at the gym, Mason got the call. It wasn't about Jason, it was about Renzo. He'd stayed behind after the teens left. Cleaned up, turned off the lights, then went into the back office and left a note. It wasn't dramatic, just direct. Tell Jason I get it now. I'm done trying to fight ghosts. And beneath it, his old gym tag, folded up like a piece of armor he didn't need anymore. Jason sat in the alley behind the gym later that night, hood up, hands wrapped. Mason found him there. He's gone, Mason said. Jason nodded. Not running, just moving forward. Mason paused. And you? Jason looked out at the street. Same thing. But far away, in a room filled with old surveillance footage, Callan watched Jason's alley fight again. Paused on the moment Jason stepped into Renzo's space, smiled, because even though he lost, he got what he wanted. The world saw what Jason still was. And that meant someone else would come looking. A week passed. Jason hadn't spoken to Renzo, hadn't tried, because he knew some people need noise to feel alive. Renzo had finally learned the value of quiet, and Callan, gone, no sightings, no texts. Just a shadow that came, stirred the water, and disappeared. But Jason wasn't fooled. He knew men like Callan didn't disappear. They waited. It was just after dawn when Mason walked into the gym and found a small box sitting on the front desk. No note, no return address. He opened it carefully. Inside, a flash drive. He plugged it into the old desktop in the office. One video file. He played it. Jason appeared on screen. Not recently. The file was old, grainy. Somewhere overseas he was sparring. Younger, leaner, meaner, and across from him Callan. Fast, ruthless. Laughing as he pressed Jason backward with each combo. Then the screen cut. Now it was Jason again, same gym, years later, calmer, more precise. And this time he dropped Callan. One hit, clean, no celebration. Just a look, like something inside him had finally shut off. Mason sat back in his chair, watching, and that's when he saw the time stamp. The same week Jason had walked away for good, the moment he'd stopped being a weapon and started becoming a man. Back at his flat, Jason stood on his balcony, phone in hand. He'd gotten the same footage. Sent anonymously, but he knew what it meant. Callan wasn't threatening him anymore. He was warning him that someone else had the tape, that someone else was digging into the past, and Jason had a choice: run again or take control of the story. That night, Jason recorded a video. Just him, no music, no edit, looking into the camera, voice low, clear. Some people know me as an actor, others knew me before the screen. I've done things I'm not proud of. I've walked away from wars, from friends, from violence I helped create, but I never ran from the truth. And if my past wants to meet me again, it better know what I've become since it last saw me. He posted it. No caption, no hashtags, just silence, and it exploded. Thousands of comments. This isn't Hollywood, this is real. He's telling us something without telling us. Respect to a man who owns his past. Somewhere across the world, a woman watched the clip. She had once been part of the same world: covert ops, borderless contracts, dark corridors. She paused the video and picked up her phone. "I found him," she said, a pause on the other end. Then a reply: "Is he ready?" She looked at the screen again. Jason's eyes didn't blink. She answered, more than ever. The next day, Jason returned to the youth center. Mason greeted him at the door. "You planning on sticking around this time?" Jason smirked slightly. "Maybe. Depends if your kettlebells are still heavier than your opinions." They laughed, and then Mason handed him something, a key to the back office. Jason raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" Mason nodded. "You're not just visiting anymore. These kids need someone who's walked out of fire and stayed calm." Jason looked around at the gym, the heavy bags, the mirrors, the future, then pocketed the key. Renzo returned too, quietly, no fanfare. He didn't need it. He just walked in, picked up the broom, and started sweeping. The kids nodded as he passed. One even called out, "You back?" Renzo replied, "Never left, just changed lanes." The gym lived again, not because of strength, not because of stories, but because of example. And Jason, he no longer needed to explain who he was. The world had already seen it, but far away in a quiet facility beneath a concrete structure, a folder was slid across a table, stamped with a name: Statham J. A man picked it up, read through it, closed it, then said, "If he's active again, we'll need him sooner than expected." And the woman from before replied, "He's not active." A pause, then she added, "He's awake."